各位觀眾大家好，歡迎收睇26分鐘見證實錄。喺上一集嘅節目之中，我哋採訪過多位自閉症兒童嘅家長以及服務提供者，咁了解佢哋對於卑詩省府為有特殊需要兒童及家庭計劃提供一站式服務嘅家庭聯絡中心計劃嘅睇法，以及對此感到嘅憂慮嘅原因。事實上，唔單止係自閉症兒童嘅家庭對於該計劃提出質疑啊，有其他特殊需要兒童嘅家庭以及組織咧，亦都表示對於省府嘅計劃唔支持。咁佢哋嘅擔憂又係乜嘢呢？而對於各方面嘅質疑聲音，當局又將會點樣回應呢
？You might get an adequate thing, but you might not get what you exactly need. And these kids are all different.
會 question 點解政府咧會去攞走或者取消一啲係真係幫助到小朋友嘅一啲嘅方法咯，而唔係去咧撥更多嘅資金咧去幫助其他特殊需要嘅小朋友。
It doesn't sound realistic, and so as we start to ask more and more questions,there are no answers. And that's even more worrying because we're talking about children.
At the end of the day, we want the best services to get to British Columbia children and youth to help them meet their goals as soon as possible.
去年12月，特殊需要兒童及家庭倡導組織 BC Ed Access 喺溫氏中心美術館前面舉行集會，唔少與會者紛紛上前訴說自己同子女喺 BC 省教育及其他系統之中所受到嘅障礙，咁同時希望通過集會提高公眾意識，進一步了解省府所宣布嘅一站式服務家庭聯絡中心計劃對於特殊需要兒童及家庭將會帶嚟嘅潛在影響。卑詩自閉症協會董事會主席 Kay Banis 以及國際認證行為分析師顏慧心菲都去到現場，表示對活動嘅支持。除咗卑詩自閉症協會之外，卑詩閱讀障礙協會、卑詩唐氏綜合症協會等機構亦都對該集會活動表示支持。
All right. So here's Kathy.
卑詩閱讀障礙協會嘅創辦負責人 Cathy McMillan 更加喺現場講述咗自己同子女嘅經歷。Cathy 話：由於自己係輕中度嘅閱讀障礙症，咁所以從未有確診過，但係佢嘅子女都有確診。而閱讀障礙作為學習障礙嘅一種，主要係由基因引起。佢指出喺卑詩省，閱讀障礙作為高發障礙嘅一種，但係就並未受到重視。
Within the education system in 2001, they took away funding for high incidence disabilities. So there was funding for things like dyslexia and mental health issues, but in 2001 it was taken away.
對於當局所宣布嘅家庭聯絡中心計劃，佢最大嘅擔憂就係免去咗篩查診斷嘅呢一個步驟。
How that ties in with MCFD?So with all disabilities, it is way, way, way better to identify early. And you can identify dyslexia as early as 5 years old. What already happens is the needs that present most easily or most readily, so behavior or probably medical needs, are going to get serviced first. So what happens is all those people with high anxiety, mental health issues, dyslexia, they're going to get serviced last. With dyslexia specifically, if you wait till grade 3 to start remediation or start helping them, it takes 4 times longer to actually get them to grade level.
Cathy 認為佢唔認為該中心計劃能夠滿足有特殊需要兒童及家庭嘅真正需求。
It's like a one-stop shop. So it doesn't mean that you're going to get the best thing out there. You might get an adequate thing, but you might not get what you exactly need. And these kids are all different. Some of them have cerebral palsy, dyslexia. Some of them have autism and high anxiety. You throw ADHD in there.
而佢就非常擔心，到咗2025年被取消個人撥款嘅自閉症兒童及家庭，會步上閱讀障礙兒童及家庭嘅後塵。
For dyslexia specifically, what I've seen happen is, because they don't get any funding or much funding, is they've turned themselves into tutoring centers. So it's not necessarily helping the issue at hand. I think they need to improve the assessment system. And when I say assessment, there's a difference between assessment and actually screening. In the United States, over the last 5 years, they've actually made legislation to actually screen every student for reading issues in kindergarten to grade 1. And I think they should do that here in BC as well.
作為卑斯閱讀障礙協會創辦負責人 Kathy 亦都同卑斯自閉症協會等34個本地組織一同簽署咗俾卑斯兒童及家庭發展廳嘅公開信。而卑斯唐氏綜合症協會主席 Tamara Taga 嘅名字亦都係其中。
In my opinion, people with an intellectual disability or a developmental disability like Down syndrome are not valued in society.
Tamara 現年14歲嘅大兒子 Beckett 患有唐氏綜合症，而佢哋目前面對最大嘅挑戰就係真正能夠讓佢獲得基本人權以及受教育嘅權利。佢表示，目前現行嘅系統對於唐氏綜合症患者嚟講，本來已經係非常之唔完善。而喺卑斯省，佢哋要獲得所需嘅服務亦都非常困難。
Everything that we do as parents for our children with Down syndrome is a fight. Everything we have to advocate for. You never get to rest from that. You never get to just be. So whether it's, fighting for, equal access to an education in school or the supports that your child needs in school to help them learn, because people with Down syndrome learn in a different way than typical people do.
Tamara 話，當局一再強調新嘅家庭服務中心係一個基於需求嘅系統，但係佢話冇任何人會比唐氏綜合症患者嘅父母更加了解自己嘅子女。咁同時，對於佢哋所提出嘅多個疑問，有關當局亦都未有給予答案。
When you announce something as big as that, we're going to end the individualized funding for autism, and we're going to create these hubs all over the province where you can go and get whatever you need. It doesn't sound realistic. And so as we start to ask more and more questions, there are no answers. And that's even more worrying because we're talking about children. And we all know that the earlier we can teach our kids, the easier it is for them. What does the hub look like? How will my son, find what he needs? Is there going to be a whole new team? Is there going to be, will he be able to get speech therapy once a week like we're doing right now, but paying for, or are we going to have to go somewhere else? Who will assess my son? And why would they assess my son? My son has Down syndrome. We've known that since day one. And it sounds like this new hub system will be very overwhelmed because there are already thousands and thousands and thousands of people in this province not getting what they need now. And then this new hub system is going to come into play in like 3 years. My son will be 17. Well, what does that mean for him? What do I do in the next 3 years? And how do I know that he's going to get what he needs?
佢坦言，唐氏綜合症兒童及家庭最需要嘅係同自閉症家庭過往嘅制度一樣，獲得個人撥款資助。
And we all wanted what the autism community has, which is individualized funding. We all wanted that. I mean, you can talk to anybody that has a child with a disability. And I know this for sure with Down syndrome. We have always talked about, oh my gosh, it would be so great if we had individualized funding, because then I can decide. As a family, we can decide, because I think that care should be family centered. It should be centered around our family because we know what is best for our son.
佢認為當局嘅決定係為咗節省更多開支，而唔係提供更好嘅服務。
because every single parent I know is saying that this is not a good idea. And, I believe that the ministry, spoke to 1,500 families in the province, they said. That is nothing. 1,500 is nothing. That is not going to give you a good representation of what is happening for families in this province who have a child with a disability.
咁其實發布咗呢個消息之後咧，咁佢哋開過一輪嘅諮詢會啦。咁喺諮詢會嘅當中咧，我哋覺得嗰啲嘅答案都係比較模糊啦，即係唔係好清晰咁樣解釋個 hub 裏邊嘅細節，而令到我哋都係有好多嘅擔心或者憂慮嘅。
從業11年嘅註冊語言治療師許永賢 Fiona 話：喺呢一間私人診所之中，佢哋每一日都會接觸好多唔同需要嘅兒童。好多都同佢哋建立咗長時間嘅關係，而喺咁樣嘅情況之下，俾兒童去新嘅家庭聯絡中心適應新嘅治療師，其實係一件非常困難嘅事情。
咁佢哋成日都會問我哋一條問題，就係話我可唔可以繼續見你啊？當我個小朋友入到 hub 啦，可唔可以咧繼續去喺你嗰度見你啊，攞到治療咧？咁呢條問題我哋都唔係好清楚，因為而家政府目前咧俾我哋嘅答案咧都係比較模糊嘅。另外一個好重要嘅問題咧，就係佢哋就問：如果我小朋友係去獲得呢一啲嘅 hub services， 但係如果父母覺得唔足夠嘅話，佢可唔可以額外付費去請我哋做佢嘅言語治療師呢？或者增強嗰個嘅密度咯？咁呢一個我哋自己都回答唔到，因為仲係未有清晰嘅答案啦。而且我哋同政府嗰個合約呢，如果真係得到呢一個嘅合約嘅話呢，當中嘅細節又唔知道會唔會可以能夠令我哋可以俾到服務呢一啲嘅小朋友，如果佢哋已經喺 hub 度攞緊服務咯。
Fiona 話：唔單止係自閉症兒童嘅家長，其他有特殊需要兒童嘅家長，確實都有同樣嘅疑問同埋憂慮。
佢哋當初咧就其實可能會好開心，覺得終於政府咧可能會對佢哋多啲關注啊，有多啲嘅資助俾佢哋。但係睇嚟咧，如果係用呢個 hub system 服務中心去按照小朋友嘅需要睇下佢哋需要幾多個服務而俾嘅話咧，佢哋覺得唔係好適合佢哋，因為佢哋想揾自己覺得可以幫到佢哋小朋友嘅治療師。咁呢一樣嘢係我哋都比較擔心嘅。所有有需要嘅小朋友，如果佢哋需要嘅話咧，佢哋都唔需要等候就可以得到服務。咁父母就會懷疑點解會唔需要等候時間呢？因為而家我哋語言治療師語言治療師啦都有短缺嘅問題。如果係冇足夠嘅言語治療師，咁又冇等候嘅時間喎。咁對於嗰個穩定性啦、嗰個密度啦、嗰個質量咧，會唔會有改變呢？
而喺該計劃宣布之前，作為服務提供者，佢哋未有收到任何相關嘅資訊，或者係參與諮詢討論嘅機會。
咁我哋知道咧 ，BC 省呢一個嘅 Autism Funding， 即係個人化嘅自閉症嘅資助咧，其實得到好多人嘅認同啦。咁我哋父母啊、治療師都好會 question 點解政府咧會去攞走或者取消一啲係真係幫助到小朋友嘅一啲嘅方法咯，而唔係去咧撥更多嘅資金咧去幫助其他特殊需要嘅小朋友。
而 Tamara 就話喺計劃宣布之後，佢參與過幾次公眾諮詢會。
I have seen mothers cry. I've seen fathers cry on some of these Zoom calls with some of these government workers, and it is really awful. And I don't know how anybody in government can see what's happening and not understand that there is a really big problem here with this announcement of the hubs. And if it's not such a bad idea, then why aren't there more answers to make us feel better about what a great idea this is?
對於好多嘅家庭、機構以及服務提供者對於該中心計劃嘅疑問同埋憂慮，咁省府當局又會點樣回應呢？下一節翻嚟，我哋將會同卑詩省兒童及家庭發展廳廳長狄恩傾下。歡 歡迎翻返嚟節目時間。省府當局表示過去幾年間，佢哋聽到咗啦好多省內有特殊需要兒童嘅家庭長時間等待以及冇辦法獲得服務嘅遭遇。同埋對於喺區內設置家庭聯絡中心嘅渴望，因此就希望建立一個以需求為基礎嘅中心，及時為有需要嘅兒童同埋家庭提供幫助。但係對於各方提出嘅質疑，省府方面又有冇考慮到呢？
This is about building a whole system and making sure that we're able to bring the services that children and youth with support needs need and be able to match up services to children and their goals.
對於該項為特殊需要兒童以及家庭提供一站式服務嘅家庭聯絡中心計劃，一經宣布之後就喺省內引起巨大嘅反響。卑詩兒童及家庭發展廳廳長迪恩接受咗我哋嘅專訪，對於該計劃作出進一步嘅解說。
At the moment, the current patchwork of programming is locked behind a diagnosis. So imagine if you're a mum and you start to have worries about your child, maybe age 2 or 3. Before you're able to get services in the current system, you have to get a diagnosis. And for many families, they're waiting 2 years for that. And so their children are missing really important developmental milestones. In this new system, families will be able to walk into a hub or phone up and make an appointment for someone to visit them at home maybe, and they can talk about what they're concerned about for their child. And there's a whole multidisciplinary team that's able to create that wraparound service.
佢話診斷報告固然重要，但係能夠盡快對兒童嘅需求進行評估並且討論，以獲得匹配嘅服務，達到佢哋嘅目標，先至係該中心系統嘅重要部分。
And whether it's speech therapy, physiotherapy, behaviour intervention, a whole range of services will be available through the hub model and delivered in different ways depending on how the family wants to receive those services. So it might be virtual connection, it might be visiting the hub, it might be having someone come into the home or do outreach out in the community. Because, we all know that families have busy lives and conflicting schedules. And so we need to make sure that the services fit with the family and for the youth to help them meet those goals in the fastest way possible.
迪恩認為，作為提供服務嘅社區機構，會了解佢哋區內有特殊需要兒童及家庭嘅需求，以及點樣能夠得到最好嘅服務。同時，佢了解家庭需要服務係要具有靈活性。
We've heard a lot from families as we've been doing consultation and as we've been listening to families in the latest activities that we've been doing, engaging with families. We know that they're juggling a lot, and so we need to be able to work with them in partnership and create that plan that will decide, for example, where do we want these particular services, whichever, OT, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, where do we need them to be delivered? How often, how long should a session be? How often should that session be? And at the end of the day, that plan is built around the needs of that child and their goals.
即使當局喺作出宣佈之前，曾經諮詢過1500個省內嘅家庭、倡導者以及社區合作機構，但係好多人都認為該諮詢並唔足夠，而且並唔全面。迪恩就回應表示，事實上喺2019年進行諮詢之前，佢哋已經收集聽取咗省內好多家庭嘅意見好長嘅一段時間。
And what families were saying to us was the current way of delivering services is a patchwork. It's just programming, and services are locked behind a diagnosis. And even families who were able to receive a diagnosis for their child, many of them were saying to us, I still can't get services because there's nobody in my area that is even delivering these services. We had also heard, we had a few reports from the representative for children and youth that we needed to build a needs-based system, and from a legislative assembly committee as well, that also heard from lots of members of the public and lots of families too. So in 2019, we started that consultation. And then, of course, what happened in 2020, we had a global pandemic.
而隨住2020年新冠疫情嘅爆發，佢表示好多家庭受到影響，難以維持原有嘅服務。
And that created a lot of urgent priorities that we needed to attend to. So we created emergency programs for families with children with support needs. But it also revealed, and this is not a criticism of the professionals, but it did reveal the fragility of the services, because it wasn't a system that was being run under contracted agencies. It was just these individual relationships. And so when the pandemic hit, a lot of families got left behind.
不過，對於省內例如語言治療師、行為分析師等嘅服務提供者人數不足，如果佢哋全部或者大部分都喺中心工作，係咪能夠仍然為一啲家庭提供私人服務嘅問題，迪恩就並未有作出明確嘅答案。只係表示佢非常感謝各領域擁有經驗以及專業知識嘅服務提供者，預計承接該中心嘅社區機構會僱用佢哋去建立一個多元化嘅團隊，並且創造更多科學嘅方法。迪恩話：佢理解到好多家庭同現有嘅服務提供者已經建立起長期穩定嘅關係。
Those relationships are really important, and we want to work with families and support families in making that transition. We would expect the community agency that's going to be delivering the services is working in partnership with Indigenous communities, with Indigenous service providers, in partnership with other agencies to be able to deliver satellite programming, perhaps, and to be able to deliver some subcontracted services as well. So these are the kind of levels of detail that we'll be working out in the early implementation areas.
佢仲指出，本省同安省嘅家庭聯絡中心實際上並唔相同。
And the BC system here is built for our BC children and youth. And the BC system is about building a whole system. And it is about making sure that there's that safety net there for all children and youth across the province, so that we're able to make sure that services are delivered in all parts of the province. And it's a needs-based system. So the services, each individual child is so unique, and each family situation is so unique as well. So parents are able to say, this is the family schedule. These are the goals that we can be working on first and that we want to tackle and give priority to. So, let's have these services. We can have them twice a week, at the hub centre, and that we know will provide some support and help achieve those goals for that child and youth. And there'll be a continual discussion as well about what services are needed, what goals are being achieved, and so then what new targets are going to be set, and how the whole family is going to be supported as well.
迪恩話：之所以冇即時實行新計劃，正正就係因為當局仲將要繼續討論同埋聆聽唔同家庭、機構、服務提供者等各方面嘅意見，去制定細節。
And we've also, we have been engaging for a long time with families, with stakeholders, with service providers. We have an Indigenous advisory circle as well. And so, we have actually been taking time and we have time. Nothing is changing at the moment, because we do want to take this thoughtful approach moving forwards. We had a lot of sessions at the end of November and in December. We also have posted frequently asked questions up on the website as well. That gets updated regularly. So as we get new questions and as we continue our engagement with families, we'll continue posting that information as well. And on the website, the information isn't there yet, but there will be more sessions of engagement. And I really encourage parents to come and talk to us and tell us their stories.
對於有其他特殊需要兒童嘅家庭，亦都希望能夠獲得同自閉症兒童家庭現時一樣嘅個人撥款資助。迪恩就話：撥款其實並唔係一定能夠解決根本問題，特別係有家庭需要等候確診長達2年嘅時間，先至能夠獲得該筆資助撥款。
I hear from families who say to me, I had to wait 2 years before I got the diagnosis. Then I had to become a case manager, and I had to find all of the services that my child needed, all the administration, all the billing, and it was really stressful. And the responsibility of having to monitor, is this a good service? Is this creating the goals and outcomes for my kid that's helping them fulfill their potential? That was stressful as well. I hear from families who are not able to access individualized funding as well, and they tell us that they're left behind. They can't find services for their children. And as I mentioned earlier on, even families who were able to access individualized funding, some people can't find services in their community. And when the pandemic hit, it really revealed how difficult it is for families to get those services that their children need, and that, you know, we know that they value so much because it's based on that individualized funding model.
根據省府公布嘅計劃，2023年將會首先喺 Okanagan 地區以及西北地區開始運作家庭聯絡服務中心。迪恩表示，當局會喺中心投入運作之後，根據各方嘅反應作出進一步嘅改善。
And so, you know, we know for some families this can't come soon enough. So we will be listening to families. We will be listening to community agencies. We'll be listening to service providers. We'll be listening to children and youth who receive services as well. And so we will continue that engagement, and we hope to hear from families and everybody involved with any suggestions for improvements.
而關於該項計劃嘅預算以及撥款，由於省財政廳喺下星期先至會公布2022年財政預算案，因此迪恩冇俾出確實嘅答案。但係佢指出喺2021年省兒童及家庭發展廳嘅財政預算案之中，當局對於有特殊需要嘅兒童及青少年嘅支援服務撥款，實際係增加咗1300萬。
We actually increased funding for deaf and hard of hearing children by $2 million, which was the first increase in 10 years. So, you know, our government has been making choices about investing in children and youth and in families. At the end of the day, we want the best services to get to British Columbia children and youth to help them meet their goals as soon as possible. We know that that is what is going to help them in the long term with their health, with their development, with their education, with their socialization. So that's what the intention is.
好啦，今集嘅節目時間呢又差唔多啦。咁如果觀眾對我哋嘅節目有啲乜嘢意見嘅話，係好歡迎大家以電郵嘅方式同我哋聯絡㗎。咁如果觀眾想重溫翻今集嘅節目，亦都可以上到去我哋嘅網站點擊節目重溫一欄。好啦，下星期同樣時間再同大家見面，晚安。